Hey Brew Tubers, Barry here. Happy Homebrew Wednesday. I'm sitting here drinking my friend Joseph's Maybach, which he called maybe not Maybach. It's tasting really nice. It's my last bottle of the 3 bottles he gave me. To me, I haven't tasted so many Maybachs, and the ones I've tried where I haven't tried a version of the style in like probably a couple of years at least. So to me, this tastes more like a nice Oktoberfest. It has the nice reddish Oktoberfest color, and the Oktoberfest toffee, candied fruits, caramel flavor, and it's a really nice beer. Which a lot of people last night, Wednesday night, at the Bitter Nesters monthly homebrew bottle share, they tried it. I brought one of the bottles, and they all really liked it and agreed with me that it tasted more like an Oktoberfest. But still, for his first lager, it came out really good. And so my big topic of discussion this week is going to be homebrew bottle shares. I have some updates on my triple, but overall, I want to talk a little, for a few minutes about homebrew bottle shares and why I think they're so important. And one way to get, to obviously participate in homebrew bottle shares is to join your local club, because at the New York City Homebrew Club meetings, like I've mentioned in the past, they have a formal part where they're teaching you something, or people are talking about their brewery, about beers they've won awards from, and then there's a big bottle share at the end. So joining a local club is very important, or you could just get together with your local homebrewers and try their beers. But one of my local homebrew shops, my main local homebrew shop, Bitter Nesters, has one on the first Wednesday of every month, and homebrewers from different clubs, from all over New York City come, and it's usually about 15 to 20 people by the end, and it's scheduled for 6:30 to 8:30, but it always goes later, because it's so much fun. And I just find myself each time I go to the Bitter Nesters one and to my homebrew club meetings, that I just learn more and more and more about homebrewing, different styles, different techniques, different flavor profiles from styles that I am very familiar with, and just overall really nice. So I'm going to be writing an article about the Bitter Nesters one. I was going to film a video, but as you guys know, at bottle shares, it's kind of hard to film and create a video because you're so involved, in the learning process or in the tasting process. And homebrew bottle shares are very important for homebrewers and craft beer drinkers in general, because you can learn in so many ways about brewing, about what it takes to brew a good beer, from tasting the beer to having the brewer there in person to say, oh, I did this, I fermented it this way with this hops, and this is what I tried differently for this recipe, or this is like version 2 or 3 of this recipe. It's just so good to do it in person, because you have that in-person interaction that just takes it to a whole more meaningful, educational, inspirational level. So if you haven't been to a homebrew bottle share in person, I know we send each other our homebrewers, between brew tubers all over the world, but I just feel the in-person bottle share is an amazing educational experience that's not to be missed. So if you're not part of a local club, do whatever you can to participate in a homebrew bottle share, because I'm definitely loving the ones I've been attending the past few months. Now, while I was at Bitter Nesters, as you guys see here on the table, I finally bought a couple 1-gallon fermenters, and I think the malts for 2 different recipes that I already had in my Brew Toad account. One is a porter, which is mainly an American malt profile with 2-row and a bunch of other specialty malts, which I didn't measure it as to the point of the recipe as I should have, probably because I was a little tipsy and impatient by the time I started weighing out the grains. But I'm going to be brewing them once I bottle my triple next week. I'll be brewing them up and throwing them in the fermentation fridge, and hopefully they'll be ready before I brew my SJ Pour beer at some point, either this month or the beginning of April, because it's going to be hop forward beer, as I've mentioned. So one's a porter and one's an ESB. Both, you know, a porter, you know, because a darker beer has more specialty grains, and I'll mention the recipe specifics once I post brewing footage. It will either be next week's Homebrew Wednesday or the following week. And then the other one is an ESB, so, you know, has a Maris outer base, I think a little bit of crystal malt, a little bit of honey malt in it, very basic. And they're both going to be fermented. I'm going to split a packet of SO4 between the two because they're both going to be, you know, not too high gravity. The porters should be like 6.1%, and the ESB about 5% or so. So I'm looking for just some, you know, experimental recipes so I can start teaching myself to brew, you know, to get familiar with, you know, packing a lot of flavor into a lower ABV beer, because as you know, past couple beers have been big beers, and while I love brewing them, I want to, you know, as I grow my skills, want to brew as many styles as possible, and create as many recipes as I can, so that, you know, I can continue growing my skills. But that's about it for this week. I'll shoot you off to some clips of the progression of my triple, from tasting one sample at the end of about the 2-week mark, and then a sample a couple of days later to make sure the primary was done. Then of course transferring it to secondary, and then an update of what it looks like after a few days in secondary. So happy Homebrew Wednesday. But I didn't speak too fast, but I was trying to make this video a little shorter than usual. Again, please make sure to try to get to some homebrew bottle shares. I'm definitely looking forward to growing as a homebrewer with you guys, you know, over the internet. Hopefully I'll meet some of you guys at some point, but continue doing whatever you can to, you know, grow your skills, learn about new styles, new ingredients, new brewing techniques, and all that stuff. So, like SJ says, enjoy the fruits of your labor and brew awesome beer. Cheers. Hey BrewTubers, Barry here. So right now my triple, after 13.5 days, nice color as you see, it's about 1022, down from 1088, so it's about, as you see here on Rooftop Brews calculator, about 8.8% alcohol. You know, I was going for about 9 to 10, something like in that range, but as you know, once I transfer it to secondary, it'll lose a few points, so it'll inch over 9%. But I am going to leave it in primary for another few days. I re-sanitized the blow-off tube and, you know, the bung and everything. I cleaned it out as much as I could, you know, because there was stuff from the blow-off. But, you know, I cleaned it out, I re-sanitized it, you know, I put everything back together, put some more Star San in the mason jar, you know, that the blow-off tube was going to, and kept everything sanitary. So it should be good. I was hoping it would be a little lower by now, but it's been just 2 weeks, so, and it's a big beer, so to have it ferment down to 8.8% after 2 weeks is pretty good. So let's pour it into the glass, and then I'll flip around the camera to show you my tasting notes. Alright, so as you see, it's a pretty nice, pretty cloudy obviously, because I took it right out of the fermenter. But the krausen has pretty much dropped, so it's pretty much done fermenting in primary. So I'll probably lose another few points in secondary, but I'm going to still, like I said, leave it around. So it's a really nice color. And now I'm going to flip around the camera, as I said. So for the aroma, exactly what I wanted. Really nice spice, a little bit of lemon from those Saaz hops, and like that classic, slightly sweet classic Belgian triple or Belgian, you know, strong ale aroma. Like no off flavors, really nice and spicy. It's really good actually. So let me take a taste. Exactly, a perfect classic triple taste. Not too sweet. You can taste a little bit of that It's very young tasting. It tastes a little bit of that Pilsner malt in the back, but overall, and it's not carbonated obviously, so it doesn't have that spritzy Belgian, dance on your palate like flavor, but overall, you taste the alcohol a tiny bit, but overall, definitely a classic triple. Exactly what I was going for. I didn't, there's no oaking going on, no added flavor, just classic, straightforward Belgian triple recipe like I've been talking about. And right now it's tasting perfect. Hey Brew Tubers, Barry here. So it's been over 48 hours, and closing in on, 2.5 days since I took the first sample of my triple, and although it bubbled a lot, after I put the fermenter back, and I was like a little surprised that it was bubbling so much. I think it was just releasing CO2 that was stirred up from jostling the fermenter, but it's still, I don't know if you could see that there's some bubbles around the fermenter, but it's still at about 1018, 1020, something like that. It's about 1018 if I look close, but closer to 1020. At about 8.8% ABV. So with the temperature corrections by 1021, so it's around 8.8% ABV, 8.6, 8.8, something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and pour it into my stone glass as usual, after I just drop it in one more time just to be 100% sure that we're at 1020. Now there's not as much bubbles on top. Yeah. It's pretty much exactly 1020. There's a little bit of a meniscus there, so it's closer to 1020 than 1018. But, with the Belgian yeast, it should drop a little bit during secondary, so that's why I'm secondarying it, to let it clear out, as I said last week, and to have it drop a few more points. But alright guys, so we're siphoning my triple into the secondary, my 5-gallon better bottle from the 6-gallon. When I was pulling out my siphon tubing from the pile of tubing that I have in my brew closet, I cracked this part of the racking cane off, but luckily the auto siphon's still working. So I'm a little worried about it, because there's a lot of carbonation going through, but that should be from the beer, which is CO2. So even if I straighten it out, there's still CO2 going through, but the little kink in the hose there is slowing that problem down. So I'm just gonna let it go on its own instead of like you would be using if you were using just a regular piece of hose for siphoning, because I don't want it to go too fast and with too much air going through, whether it's CO2 or not. Alright guys, so before my camera dies, I'm going to show you what everything looks like here. So here's the kind of ripped up, folded insulation of paper towels from my primary, and the yeast, that cake that's in the bottom. There's actually not as much yeast on the bottom there as I thought, but there would be, but there really isn't any gunk there. It's really pure yeast, which means a lot of stuff is going to probably have to settle out of the secondary, which I'll show you now. Hey Brew Tubers, so for just one last quick clip of my triple, this is what it looks like after about 2 days in secondary. As you see, there was some activity there because it's left a nice ring of bubbles, a ring of sticky bubble residue around the top of the fermenter. And now there's just some bubbles on top, really, from CO2 being pushed up. It does bubble, occasionally through the blow-off tube. But it has been setting off, turning on my fridge through the temperature controller, pretty often. At least more often than I expected it to. So there's still some, I'll see how much, the gravity drops in secondary, but I wouldn't be surprised, if it goes, if I check it, and I'm surprised it actually went down, far. Like instead of going from 1020 or 1022 to 1018, it might go even farther. So we'll see. But, one last bit of information is that sometimes with these big beers, it's good to secondary them, even if you're not oak aging them or adding anything, just to allow some of the sharper alcohol, fusel alcohol notes to develop into maybe some more fruity, estery flavors rather than like a boozy flavor. So, although the first two samples I took were really amazing tasting, there's still some booziness in the finish, and I want that to maybe smoothen out, and add a little more fruitiness to the beer. So we'll see after about a week, or maybe a little over a week in secondary before I bottle it, we'll see how that, factor plays a role in the actual flavor profile and aroma of the beer. But that's where we're at, and yeah, cheers.